Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental A-Team Podcast. Hello, Dental A-Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, back by popular demand, these were some of the most listened to podcasts, and I don't blame you. My dear friend, Krol, who talked about how to hack your health, how to bet on yourself and create your own luck. Serial entrepreneur, built and sold many successful businesses. I call him my bajillionaire friend, and I wanted to bring him back on the podcast to kind of give us an inside scoop. We hang out in dentistry. We know how to roll up and do DSO cells, but I do believe there's a lot more to us than just dentistry. There's a lot of side hustles out there. There's a lot of people doing different things. So I wanted to bring Pierce back on and get into the nitty gritty of how do you actually sell a business? Like, let's dive into this. Let's get nitty gritty. If I can bring anybody in who's a candid, trusted friend, I know it's Pierce. So Pierce Krol, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Of course. So if you guys missed the other episodes, Pierce and I have known each other since 2019. He's one of my dear friends. We met at Tony Robbins, a very, I don't normally reach out to people like Pierce because I'm like, no, I'm not a guy. I'm not a strong business leader. And then they said, pick a friend who's an opposite of you. And I'm like, Pierce, you are an entrepreneur. I love to just have a good time and good friends. And Pierce has really over the years inspired me of what I could become and how I could be a better business owner. And we've really shared some awesome times. Pierce has grown from serial entrepreneur to now, and the last episode, calling himself Hippie Pierce, where he now has prioritized his health. So bringing him back on, I want to bring out entrepreneur Pierce mixed in with Hippie Pierce, both back to the show of how did you even know when to sell the business? How did you go about selling the business? You sold an insurance company. I think it was Elevate, something like that, if I remember right. And now you have Insurely, which is the Amazon business, that Amazon version of insurance that you created an idea of at Tony Robbins 4 years ago. Pretty impressive that you had that dream and now it's a reality and on track to be better than your other business. So how did you even know when it was the right time to sell? I don't even know. I talk about selling. I don't think I ever would. The artist in me loves Dental A-Team. I love to create it. But let's just go through this nitty gritty of selling a business, what it feels like to sell a business, identity pieces, all the pieces. So Pierce, you take it for where you want to start. I think it'll be I'm just geeking out on behind the scenes of how to sell a business.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And please interject if you want to steer the conversation, ask some questions. But, I think there was a lot of things going on at the time, but yeah, to kind of back up. So I started this business from scratch. We've talked about it before in previous episodes, but never really got into it. So I started this company from basically my kitchen table. Cold started this business, no clients, no money.
This is not his new one. This is the one he sold. So this is the
right.
Elevate, right? So
Elevate Insurance. Yeah, perfect. Is what it was called. So we had what I call brick and mortar. So we had some offices. So we started this company, again, no customers and just really no experience, and just built this thing ground up. And we found some success. We did a lot of things wrong.
Back up. How on earth did you get into insurance? I don't even know this about you. How did you be you came from farm boy to insurance? I need the bridge, Pierce, because it doesn't make any sense.
I can give you the bridge, and it's a story that I don't share very often, but hey, why not share it? So I worked really hard on this farm, or my version of really hard. And my parents might argue different, but I thought I worked really, really hard. And so I left when I was 18, and I got a few other jobs, oil field jobs, labor jobs. And I thought, this is crazy. I don't want to work outside. So I ended up getting into life insurance. And for those that don't know life insurance, you're selling life insurance policies. So I was 18 years old. You can imagine how many people want to buy life insurance from an 8-year-old kid. And so the first year in life insurance, are you ready for this? I made $24,000.
Dang.
Yeah. And so that was tough. And that was really tough. But I had this vision of I'm going to do it. So then I had a relative in what's general insurance. So think homes, cars, businesses, those types of things. And I took an interview and they said, we'll hire you, but it's sink or swim. And I'm going, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I just want a job. And so, long story short, I ended up swimming, and this company, I did quite well, and this company ended up selling. So at that point, I knew I was never going to be a partner in this firm. So I kind of did the only thing I knew how and said, "The heck with you guys! I'll just go start my own company. How hard could this be?" I had a
It
couple credit
doesn't.
cards.
How many listeners? I know I did it. Like, yeah, this can't be that hard. I watch that boss sit in their office all day long. Like, they don't even do anything.
Exactly, exactly. Look at that fat cat, man. He's doing well, and I'm doing all the hard work. So that was really the reality of it. So I kind of quit on a whim, if you will, and said, you know what, I'm gonna. And this was after. I mean, this was like 7, 8 years in of doing that business. So I had a good idea what I was doing. So I wasn't just completely blind, but I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about taxes, employees, all of that. I kind of naively just would figure on the fly, and thank God I did at some point. But so I ended up starting this business from scratch, and we built it up over an 8 year period to be a fairly successful business. We'll be modest, and it was in, yeah,
Wait,
like
when
you
you say
said.
fairly successful, take your dental practice times like 100, and
No,
that.
goodness, yeah, you're pumping me up. But so the reality was we built this business, and a consolidator, national consolidator, wanted to buy this business, and so that's,
How did that even
spoiler alert.
happen? Did they like text you, call you, email you, send an email? Like, I don't even understand how you were found by the
Sure.
consolidator. How does that even happen?
Okay, so before we can get to that, then I have to preface it a bit because I reached out to companies and put my company out to bid. Essentially, I made it known that it was for sale, and then went down a more, we'll call it, analytical route. But
Okay.
before we get there, because I'm gonna have to tie it together on, you're gonna ask me why I sold it. In order to go why, I kind of have
Yeah.
to back it up a bit. So we built this company, and it was doing well, and we had lots of employees, we had a good source of revenue, we were very profitable, things were going extremely well, and my peers in the industry are going, I want to be you. Essentially, it was some of the thought process. The things that you're doing, the things you're creating. There was challenge, but we created a really nice business.
Hmm.
And so prior to us meeting in Las Vegas, I started building a new building, a shrine to myself, if you will, for this company that we're going to house the future growth. So we ended up building this building, and it was beautiful. The entry was 2 stories, and I had polished concrete, and I sponsored local art gallery. I had these like 6 by 4 foot paintings, just grand lobby, and it was amazing. And so what I found, and this will all tie together, is, during, say, that time that we built and we moved in and we went to Vegas, this business mastery. You're right. I had a little notebook on, the future of my life and what I wanted business to look like, and it was the Amazon insurance. And I didn't conceptually know what it was, but I knew what I wanted to do. And
Hmm.
so I came back, and we had this beautiful new building that we built. And my office is on the second floor, and I'm overlooking what's essentially our reception area. It was beautiful, like tan leather couches, just an amazing concept we built. And the only reason I'm saying is that because you have to have the backstory to know how it kind of ends. And so I'm sitting in my office looking at this book of what I want to do, digitizing insurance, scalability, go to the masses, consumer behavior. And I'm overlooking this waiting room that's full of people that came on their lunch hour to buy insurance from a complete stranger, and probably to fax something, have a void check in hand. Just this very similar experience, but I just didn't like it. So at that point, I said, you know what? I've something's calling me to just pivot. And so instead of pivoting that entire business, I knew I wanted to start a net new business because I love the foundation of it, and the business, I thought it was marketable. The business I wanted to create was net new because, like on the previous podcast, we talked about some of the culture pieces, and we can change that, but I knew I could do even better with culture. So anyways, I had to kind of set you up to where we were
Yeah.
now. So 8 years later, we've got this business, and so I wanted to sell this business because I had this vision. So some people think you're crazy. At the time, I was 30, I think it was 35, and so way too young to retire. Can't go play golf with by myself, right?
You would have been, you would, they say that I've heard this often that entrepreneurs sell their businesses and then, like, in 6 months, they've got another one started because they can't handle sitting there idly. Um, but I am curious, like, I think the rationale would be, Pierce, you've built this up, it's profitable, it's doing well. You've done all the hard work. Why would you want to sell it now and go start something new? And that is my
Mm-hmm.
question for you. Like, why did you want to sell it? Because that's oftentimes, I think, with dental practices. Like, I was actually just talking to a client this week, got a very successful practice, very successful. And he's like, Kiera, I just want to sell it. And I'm like, you're going to be like a flat wash zero if you sell it right now, from the taxes to this. Like, you could roll
Hmm.
it up, you could make so much more, give it 5 more years. And so I'm just curious, like, that is oftentimes the logical rationale behind selling a business is it's profitable. You've done all the hard work.
Sure.
Why sell it, Pierce?
Yeah, I think and there's probably two different types of end results that people are looking for. Maybe you're at the end of the career, or you want to be at the end of your career, and you're looking for financial freedom.
Of course.
That's definitely one. For me, it was a portion of that, but it was more about what I wanted to do next, which was really exciting. So as this business was selling, I already had this other business conceptually being built. I was very forthcoming with it actually to their buyers that this company existed, and we were able to craft it into the deal in non-competes and all these cool things that come with people buying your businesses. It was very transparent. So for me, half of it was this drive to go do something different. And I've said it before that, and I think it was on the first podcast we did that, I would lose sleep over not trying something. And that's how passionate I was about this business. So I wanted to sell it. So we'll get to how I sold it because I think
Okay,
that's
so you
important
really
too.
have
But
your main business, but you've also created a side hustle,
yeah,
and you are in love with the side hustle, and
yes,
it's this fun love affair you've got going on over there. Like, let's sell this one. Like, it's done its
yeah,
job, and I want to probably, my hunch is you probably wanted to take money from this current business, sell it, get a pretty reasonable sell price for it, take it, invest into your passion project that really is like that one was your financial freedom builder, I would guess. And
yeah.
this one now is your passion project, would be my assumption and guess.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
fair?
100% correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
totally fair. That's 100% correct. And that's really what it did is like, yeah, there's financial freedom that comes with that of selling a successful business or a dental practice, if you will. But the other part was it was a vehicle to let me chase that passion project. And I mean, if you're doing a business and it's somewhat fulfilling, you can be successful. You can fake it. But building a business that you're passionate about, where your hobby is working, like that is a complete game changer. Talk about, what a gift. I've got, we'll call it, I've got this habit, this obsession with work. And there's a lot of addictions out there that are frowned upon. Working really hard is not nearly frowned upon. So I'm very fortunate that I can kind of live that. So yeah, so that was kind of the premise of it. And then so going to selling it, I wanted to basically find a buyer that was going to take this business and continue it on and build this thing and something you could be proud of because it took, like when you're saying blood, sweat, and tears, and literally all three of those happened.
Mhm.
And I'm not
Yeah.
just saying that. There is literally blood, sweat, and tears that went into that business. And so they bought it and I thought, okay, perfect. We've got an amazing group of employees. I want them to carry on and do all these cool things. Then I can go on and chase this passion project. So what ends up happening is I take this company to bid. And what I mean by bid is I packaged it together with the help of some accountants in Vancouver. And we created this package where we could send it out to the big consolidators of the world and say, this business is for sale. This is what we're doing in revenue. This has been our year over year growth. This is our EBITDA. This is our profit margin. And so we took everything we could about this business, put it in a really pretty PDF with a pile of Excel spreadsheets I didn't understand. Again, that's where the accountants come in. And we
Mhm.
send it out and we said, this business is available. If you're interested, let us know. You can sign a non disclosure and we'll get a little more thorough and we'll do due diligence.
So,
And
Pierce,
so
I'm
that, yeah,
curious.
go ahead.
I don't want to know your revenue numbers. It's not what I'm looking for.
Sure.
What kind of a growth did you have over those 8 years, year over year over year? Were you like a 20% growth, a 40% growth, a 200% growth? What kind of percentages did you have? And not to put you on a pedestal or anything. I
Mm-hmm.
just like to know nitty gritty on businesses of what is possible. What was your growth year over year over year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the early days, we were 200% a year because 200% of
Crazy.
nothing is pretty easy, right?
I
So I
know. I
don't think
used to
there's
feel
a
so proud of myself. And then I'm like, here, that was like nothing.
right, right, and
Anyway.
so it gets dramatically harder. But the what was really cool was, and I think for the buyers in our industry, they're looking at like what we are doing over the last 3 years. They want to see if there's any
Mhm.
skeletons in the closet. But for us, we were fortunate. We grew every year by double-digit margins, and yeah, it was a couple 100%
Amazing.
the first 3 or 4 years. But the last I would say 4 years, we were in that 20-25% growth margin. And when we sold that company, we were 38.6% profit margin. So we were doing quite
Amazing.
well. Yeah, we were doing well in our space.
And thanks for sharing that because I wanted to point that out for a couple reasons. Startup businesses, newer practices listening in, that 100, 200, 300% growth should be happening at the beginning of your business. But then as we become more of a seasoned practice, we become a more seasoned business, you have less and less of that. But I wanted to know because I equally try and say between a like at least a minimum of a 10% annual growth is healthy for a dental practice. But if you know you want to sell, I know there are different things in the dental space because we roll up, we get multiples there. But if you just have one like monstrous practice, that 25% growth with you hear 37% profitability margin. And if you listening right now don't know those numbers on your business, I want you to make like a little checkbox. Go figure out your profitability margins. Go figure out how much you're growing year over year over year. Those are things as a business owner you need to know because I had some of the best advice I was ever given. And that was always, it's a business. You always, always, always need to be planning for it to be sold. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. And so, even if you
Mm.
never plan to sell it, you need to be a solid business owner and know those numbers. So, thanks for diving into that. Okay, so you guys have it, you wrap it
Yeah.
up, you go and send it off to all these people to look at it, which is similar to dental offices. But I'm wanting you guys to also get outside of dental practices. There are so many other things. There's real estate, there's other businesses, there's lots of team members that listen to this. What other side hustles, passion projects could you do? Here's how we sell or look for these businesses that are being sold was really why I wanted Pierce to come on here today. Okay, so you send this out, fancy thing,
Yeah.
all the Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, so I think what's important too is, and again, this is just my story, but I think it does resonate with the dental offices. I think we could probably play the game here in a little bit. If you want to say, if I were to buy a dental office, what would I be looking for? Because I think it'd be fairly similar to almost any
Okay.
business, and that's profitability, that's growth, and the opposite would be like if you were losing, say you were losing 70% of your business every year, like that's a quick path to nowhere. But if you were to buy a business that's losing 10% and you could identify it, know why it's happening, and then make a quick pivot, well, maybe you can buy something a bit of a deal. But what this consolidator and what a lot of consolidators want to do, and I'm sure I don't know the dental space, but I'm sure it'd be very similar. You want to buy something that's making money. It's an
Yep.
investment. You're going to buy it for X and it's got to pay you back over X amount of time. So therefore, it needs to be profitable and it needs to be able to run without that one dentist, without me, right? Because I'm going to be gone. They're not buying me, they bought the company. So I was getting phased out regardless of which way I looked at it. But what this company was looking for was growth year over year, organic growth. So not just increased in rates necessarily, but organic growth, new customers, the distribution channel we had, and then the profitability. And so what was, again, what really worked for me over the years too, and I got some really good advice, but it was a company will consume all cash it has access to, which is very important, very true. You can spend a lot of money, but again, my story being starting this business in my 20s with absolutely zero money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and a couple of credit cards that are always maxed out. One thing that I found was you can't go in anywhere and loan money. It's actually even harder because they're going to go, you don't have much for assets. And I go, but I've got this beautiful business. And they go, that doesn't count. So
Right.
what I ended up having to do was really work on retained earnings, the money that we were making. And I was told you we had a decent profit margin. All that money got left in the company. So I wasn't out at the end of the year going, oh, I can't wait. I'm going to get this new Ferrari and whatever. Like the money was always left in the business. So fun fact to the listeners, over the 8 years, not one of those years did I take a dividend. Not one. Took a salary. The salary increased slightly, but it was very, very reasonable and modest. And so all money got left in the company. So when you looked at my financials, we had this retained earnings with this very, we'll call it large sum of money there that's left in the company. So when we went and bought buildings, when we did all these crazy things, they could tell I was being responsible. I wasn't bleeding this thing dry. So when we took it for sale, you can lie about a lot of things, but you can't lie about your financials. They're audited. I mean, the due diligence we went through was insane. I've bought a few companies in my life, and looking back, I'm a little bit embarrassed of how quickly I bought them because the company that bought me was thorough. But they buy hundreds of insurance brokers a year, and they do an amazing job. They're an amazing company. But looking at those financials was really important. And so then they looked at our systems, and I wanted to kind of lob you this one because you're a huge systems person. They're not going to buy our company and go, well, Pierce, how are you guys making money? You go, God, if I know, like no idea. We're just doing really well. No, it was systems, and you're the systems like queen, if you will. So systems were really, really important to them.
Yeah. No, that's super helpful to know the things they were looking for, the things that you guys did. I also love that you really kept the earnings in there because that is a conversation that a lot of people have. And I'm curious, Pierce, how did you how did you not get tempted to spend that money? Because I feel so many business owners, like dentists who start practices, and I'm not saying this is wrong. I think that this is a
Mm-hmm.
very common mindset is, but like I work hard and I want to be compensated for that hard work. So how did you, it's like the analogy where those kids like with the marshmallows, and if they don't eat the marshmallow right away, they get two. But like so many of us delay that gratification, and we don't want to delay gratification. What was like what incentivized you to keep money in the business? I have my reasons for doing it. I'm sure mine's very different than yours, but how did you do it? What was your reasoning behind it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was to fuel the growth, and you got to remember, I asked for money from banks a couple times, and they laughed, and so that was a big motivator to go. You know what? I get it. I get the risk side for you. So I have to leave money in here for a rainy day. So we have a good chunk of money as collateral. So that was kind of reason number one, and the other one was, imposter syndrome in some ways. I didn't need to go and buy these things, and like, as this company was building, what did the company need more? Did it need better employees? More marketing, a nicer building, or did Pierce need a Porsche? And that was really the reality of it, right? Is they didn't want to be self-serving, so we left the money in and it did all kinds of funny things. And compound interest, everyone knows how that works. And that was really the
Right.
reality of it. When we wanted to go do something, and there was a couple of times where we had hired a couple of employees that I didn't know our company needed until we needed it that day. And I said, what if we hired this person? That would make us way stronger, better, faster, quicker, whatever it was. And there was a couple of times where that person came in unexpectedly say, I want a job. And I could look at our account and go, yeah, let's do it. But if I had to go out and sell said Porsche, it makes it a lot more challenging, or leverage said Porsche. It made it challenging. So for me, it was very important to have this money around to take advantage of the opportunities, because the opportunities don't come when you want them to. They kind of sneak up on you. And so for me, it worked out very well. We were able to make a few kind of well-timed hires, expand our market. And so it was super important. Spoiler alert to everyone out there: Pierce ends up getting his Porsche, so don't feel bad for him. But it's kind of a longer story, and it was after the fact. So yeah,
It was
that
fun.
was it.
I did see you drive that, which made me happy that you actually bought it because so often we like dream of these things and then we go get them and then it's like, oh, womp. But I like that you said that because that's a very similar reason why I like to keep a lot of money in the business as well is I like to say yes to things and I like to have my options available. I don't like to constantly be struggling because I know that when opportunity presents, it's only there for a short amount of time most of the time. So being able to say yes, but you've got to be careful that you don't become an addict of saving so much money that you never spend money either. I think there's a well balanced version. You built this beautiful building. You did not sound like scrimp on that building. You were very lavish in
Right,
the building. Okay, so you have a buyer, you sell it. Talk to me about how like there's two pieces to this. You sell it and I feel like there are two sides to this coin. One side of the coin of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've got a check for this amount would be my guess. I've never done this, so I'm assuming. And the second side is, oh my gosh, I just lost my identity. Like, is that real? Is that what happened? Because I would imagine you built this thing. Yes, you've got a passion project, but this is like your main shebang. It's been there. Passion project seems fun, but now you've got to actually like live on that potentially. Like, walk me through your buyer, they're there, they're writing you a
sure,
check. Maybe even leading up to that, like how does this happen? Because and also you gotta I remember you sold your soul. You were there for what, 2 years? I knew you the 2 years you were working through it. You had to, that was part of the phase out process, which is similar to
right,
dental offices selling. So walk me through that day, that
sure.
experience to where you are now.
So I've got two stories that I want to share. One is selling the business and the emotions that go with it, and the other side is the check piece. And they're two different
Okay.
stories, but I want to
All
share
right. So
them.
leading up to the check piece, walk
Yeah,
me through this.
leading up to the check piece. So yeah, I mean, we go through some due diligence, and it's crazy, and we've got a plan, and we're going to market this to our staff, and because they want this business to work too. So yeah, you're right. I did have a 2 year earn out, which I committed to, which is totally fine. It's challenging in its own right, but it was part of the deal. But I think the day that you I hope everyone gets to experience it, and not because it's negative or it hurt, but because it's a really unique feeling. So we sold this company, and I had to break the news to our employees. And so I called a staff meeting. We did staff meetings all the time. I brought them back to this beautiful foyer. And I said, hey, I've got something to say. And so I was racing in my mind all day. I'm sweating. I'm going, how am I going to do this? Do I talk about the water cooler for a bit and all these cool things, or do I just get after it? And so I decided, in kind of my personality, let's just
You
get
get
on with
after
it,
it.
right? Yeah, big surprise. So we had everyone together. And I said, hey, I've got something I want to share. I said, the competitor that we all despise, that we've went after, and went toe to toe with in the last 8 years has bought us. It was our biggest competitor at the time, and we took pride in competing because we were always the the David and Goliath, or the David in the story. And I said they bought us, and everyone's reaction was, "You're hilarious! Like, get on with it here. What are we talking about today?" And I said, "No, honestly," I said, "I know this is a big shock, but effective basically it was tomorrow. They are a new ownership group of our company, and they'll be doing a presentation." And the tears, the uncertainty, the frustration, that there was anger. Like, there was a few people I knew wanted to take a swing at me, and so we built our company off of being the smaller, nimble, company. So a lot of our employees were their ex-employees, or a lot of our employees have grown to really have that competitive nature. So having this company come by you was really, really quite stressful. And so for me, I had people go, "How would you ever sell to them like the devil?" And I said, "You know what?" And this is I want your listeners to hear this, but they were. And I thought about not selling to this competitor because they're the devil. But what reality was, that was just my ego. At the end of the day, it was my ego. I said, I want to sell it to them because they're a big consolidator. They're going to do a great job with it. And that's what it came down to. So the hard part was step one, the employees. The second hardest part after that was
So how
this
many
brand
people
new
quit? I have to ask, how many people quit? Did you have people who quit, or did most of them retain?
two quit.
Okay.
Two
Out
quit.
of how
One,
many employees?
we were at 25 on that
Okay.
business.
Not bad odds. I mean, that's like less than 10%. So you're doing good there.
Yeah, one quit almost instantaneously, and another took a little bit longer and said there was a few different reasons, but I know the reason. But and that's fine. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And I made my decision that was best for me, and they made the decision that was best for them.
Well, and I wanted to point that out because I think we're oftentimes so afraid of what's going to happen. But genuinely speaking, most of the time employees will stay. They're at least going to stick it out. Like they've got to go find another job anyway. You already know this, you already know your
Hmm.
team. So I wanted to just highlight that of in 25 employees, two quit and you sold to your competitor, like the
Yes,
person that was the devil. So I just
yes.
wanted to highlight that because I think so often when we're looking at this, especially offices looking to sell, we're so scared, but it's usually unfounded and doesn't really come to reality. Okay, so first is employees. Next is what?
So the next piece for me, and this was probably the most emotional time I've ever had in business, but signing the deal, doing all that stuff didn't even phase me. It was this building, this building I built for the longevity of this company. I spent, I think it was $45,000 just on the signage of this building. I was so proud of the sign, and we were on a main road, so it was like a billboard. This whole thing was backlit. It was beautiful, and like 3 weeks after them buying it, they wanted to change the name to their logo. And so I showed up to work in my corner office. I still had it. And there was a sign truck outside with like a crane, and they're peeling this sign off my building. I'm like, what is going on? And like at that point, I felt so like low is not the right word, just emotional. They're peeling this piece. It's you, it's your baby, it's everything you've built. And they pull this sign off. And the sign company goes, "Do you want this sign?" And I go, "Well, kind of." But you got to know this sign is like, I don't
It's
know.
probably
It
huge. It's
was,
probably
it
this
was, it
tall
was,
then.
yeah, it was vertical. It's like 30 feet high, 10 feet
You're
wide. It
gonna
was
put
a
it in the
massive
garage. It's
sign.
not like we can go put that up there and you can have by your workout bench. Okay.
Right.
You have
And
to put it as like
so,
a monument in your backyard.
well, what would you do with it? Right. What would you do with it? And
Nothing.
I asked the sign guy, and I literally asked him, like, what am I going to do with it? And he goes, "Well, if you want, if it's sentimental and it's so big." I'm like, "I don't know if I can." And he I don't know, he said something, and he doesn't know. He changed my life. But he goes, at the end of the day, he's like, "This is metal and LED lights, man." He's like, "If you wanted it," he's like, "go buy a roll of LED lights and put it in your garage."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, you're right." And then so I started going, well, I paid 45 grand for this sign. And then I just was like, you know what, let it go. So I don't even know what happened to that sign. God knows where it went. But it pulled off this building, and it was so emotional. And at that point for me, it was actually powerful because it was kind of like this grief moment where you can just be like, this is legit. Like it's done. So
Yeah.
that was a big moment for me. But yeah, another moment I want to share, and which I don't think I've really shared with anyone, and maybe I've told you in confidence once, but I think it's fitting because we've talked about building this business and selling it, and we can really geek out and get into the details of the divestiture process. But what was really cool after all this was really signing the form, all the funds clearing, everything happening, and then picking up that check the next day. And so to me, this is a very this is like a pride piece for me. And so I'll kind of set it up because again, don't get me wrong, I wasn't starving my entire life, but life was challenging, just like it is for everyone. And so to me, I got to go to the law firm and they said, do you want me to just deposit this into your account or do you want to check? And I said, oh, check for sure. For sure,
Check for
check.
sure. This is
Check
going
for
in the
sure.
diary journal, like, absolutely.
Right. Right. So I had them print the check out and I picked it up the next day or whatever it
Were you a
was.
little scared picking that check up? Because I'd be like, "Oh, like, don't let the wind take this."
It was kind of like you kind of had that like winning lottery ticket feeling, but it was there's a really proud moment to pick up a check that was larger than anything I've seen before, and so that was really cool. So you pick up this check, and I'm going to the bank, and I'm going to this bank. It's called Royal Bank of Canada. It's one of our larger banks, and so you have to know the history. I've been risk tolerant my entire life, so before I get to the story, I just have to give you a quick one, and I promise it'll be quick. But growing up, there was times when I had no money in my account. I'm 16, 17, 18 years old. And literally, I mean, no money, like it's zero. And so there's this one time where, and I got reprimanded from the bank, but I think it was like $12 in my account. And I wanted to take out 20. So in order to take out, you can't take out $10. You had to take out a minimum of 20 in $20 bill. So I had like 12. So I scrounged up all this change that I could find. I put all this change in an envelope and I chucked that thing through the automatic machine through those rollers, and it did not like that. It was very angry, and so I put all this change in there, and then so I had $21. So therefore, I was able to take out $20. I could get some gas money and carry on with my day. I was 18 years old, and this was on a Saturday. And so Monday, the bank manager calls this small little town, and I knew her because it's a small town, and her name's Tammy, and she goes, Pierce, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean, what are you doing? She's like, you can't put change in the machine. And I go, well, it's a deposit. Like she's like, you cannot put change in an envelope, lick the envelope. And she's like, it wrecks the rollers. It's so hard in the machine. And I said, well, then let me take out $10. Like I needed $10. So anyway, so she gave me so much trouble. And then, so a couple of weeks go by and I go to the bank again because I need a little bit more money. So this time I know I can't put change in it. So I put a piece of paper and I put a note and I go, I owe you $40. And I put that on a piece of paper. I wrote it down, put that in the machine, and guess who calls on Monday and goes, you can't. That is stealing. And I said, well, I said, I owe you. I'm like, you see, I'm going to make a deposit. Like I get paid in like 5 days. And she goes, that's not how this works. We're now taking away your deposit privileges. You can't deposit money through machine anymore. And we're going to put a hold on anything that you try to deposit. And so I go, okay. So anyway, so I'm setting this scene for this scenario. So I've got a bit of a black mark at this bank. They're not super thrilled with my business and my lack thereof business anyways at this time. So I was 18 years old. So, you know, fast forward. So you get this check from the lawyers and I call my wife at the time. I say, hey, we got the check. Come with me to the bank. I said, this is an amazing experience. I want to go do this. So I got this check in my hand and I'm standing in line and we're, waiting for your turn, waiting for your turn, waiting for your turn. And I go, oh, I'd love to make a deposit. And they go, oh, absolutely. Yeah, no problem. Can you put your card in the machine and we'll pull your profile up? So I do that. And they go, okay, what are you depositing today? I'm like, oh, I just have this check here. Can you just put that in my checkings account? She goes, yeah, absolutely. She takes it and looks at it and then looks at it again. And so it's multi-million dollars, whatever. That's not important. The important part is it's more money than I've ever had. And in that moment, she goes, hey, I'll be right back. I just need to get another manager. And I'm grinning. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Absolutely. Totally understand. So this manager comes and she goes, due to the amount, I actually have to get the bank manager to come sign off this. And I'm like, take your time. No problem. If you could speak just a little louder so everyone in the bank could hear you, like, that was the feeling, right? And so they go through this and they do. So the bank manager comes and so this story ties together perfectly. And he goes, hey, I've just got to make some calls to outside the branch. If you would like to take a seat here, we'll be right with you. And I said, okay. So 10 minutes goes by and I'm sitting, I'm loving every minute of this. And so I always joke this feeling I had, like this must be what it's like to be a drug addict or something when you like get this high, because to me, this is the high I'm chasing again, not necessarily for the money amount, but that feeling. And so to wrap the story together, waves us over and come back up to the till. And he goes, hey, I, want to thank you for doing business with us, Mr. Krol. And I'm like, what was that? we're so happy to be a part of it. And we'd love to set you up and talk to some people about some things and all. And there's this whole thing, right? And I'm grinning ear to ear because I'm the guy that got a phone call and got shit for putting like, quarters or whatever nickels through this machine so much earlier. And so we left there going, Mr. Kroll, well, isn't that nice? How the tables have turned, right? Like took away my deposit privileges to basically, carrying you out on this pedestal or rickshaw or what have you. So it was a really cool experience. I wanted to share that because it was just like I said, it was this powerful drug. It was something that, I hope people get to experience because you work so hard at building your business, your dental practice and the amount of work you have to do and the billable hours and the challenges in hiring people. And do you buy another office? Do you make this office bigger? And so all of those, for those who listen to our previous episode, those heart attacks, if you will, all those stressors in that moment were just gone. And I've never slept so good in my life. To this day, it was such a fulfilling experience to just look at where you were not even 15, 20 years earlier of being just this punk kid who was just trying to cheat the system to believing in yourself to getting to where you want to be. So again, to the audience, like, I'm not special by any means, so we can all attain it. So for you, if you're in a different business, you're in dental, do the hard things, believe in yourself, work hard, and maybe you'll have a very similar experience to myself where you've got this kind of amazing story that wraps up your entire life in like a 5-minute story.
It's amazing, Pierce. And I appreciate you sharing because I I love that we've become friends and that you're willing to share this, like, let's peel back the curtain. And that's why I love to podcast. That's why I wanted to talk to you specifically because not everyone will share those things and I appreciate that. And what I love, I remember there was a time shortly after you sold the business. I remember leading up to it. I remember the day you were going in and you and I actually chatted and it was a very emotional day. It was like your heart and soul was being sold, and then to hear the other side of that, of the like beauty. And then like 2 years, you had bad days, you had great days. Like it was a whole wash, but like that moment I feel was so pivotal of losing your identity, having things gone from you, things you'd worked for. But then also, I remember a very key phrase you told me. You said, Kiera, I hope people get to experience this because it changed my life and I'm financially free for life. And I just thought about that. And you're like, the freedom that it gives you to sell your business, to have that. And now you're like, who knows where you are now? I know you put like so much money into your new business and all of that. And I think that that's what entrepreneurs do. We get financially secure and then we go spend a ton of money and then we're like back in where we need to be. But I just love that you shared of how you did it, the feelings of it, because I think so many people are afraid. We're afraid of losing that identity. And I look at you now and you're more prosperous, you have a great thriving business, you're recreating it, you're living it differently, you're doing it differently. And for some that's your story. For others, you want to live in your practice until you die and you just want to live that legacy. And so there is no right way to do it. I just wanted Pierce to come on and share what it's like to sell a business that you started from scratch, what it's like to give up a legacy, what it's like to build a new legacy, and also that feeling on both sides of the coin. So, Pierce, I appreciate you so much. I know you have to run to a meeting. You gave me all of your time today, and I appreciate that. But any last things you want to wrap up this one of how to sell a business and that beauty on both sides of it? And like he did say, spoiler alert, he sent me a picture of the Porsche, and I think you had that for how long? I think like a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then
No,
you got rid of
well,
it.
yeah,
It
like
was like very short
five
lived.
months. Yeah, 5 months. For the listeners that are into it, yeah, I had a dream of buying a Porsche. So I bought a Porsche GT3 RS. It was, and it's in lava orange. Called it obnoxious orange.
Because
Uh,
his business is orange and he thought about it for the business and he was like, there's no way I'm driving this to work, Kira.
yeah, it was so hard, but I mean, I spent thousands of hours looking at this thing over 10 years on YouTube, and then I bought this car. It showed up. They had it delivered. It was amazing. I went for a drive, and I came back and I go, huh, that's what I've been obsessed over the last 10 years about. And so yeah, I drove it for a couple of months. Didn't want to put too many kilometers on it and got rid of it. But it was again, it was more about accomplishing that goal, which you'll hear me talk about a lot, and just going, that was awesome. So I'm so happy I got to experience it. But yeah, that wouldn't have happened without working hard and selling a business. And again, on that business piece, that's what I want to end with. Is you're right. There is really no right or wrong way to do it. If you want to keep the business and you have a profitable business and you want to keep it forever and you want to pass it down to family, kids, whoever it may be, there's nothing wrong with that. Take a lot of pride in it. For me, I knew I wanted to get on to bigger and better things, and that meant detaching myself from this logo, and that's what I did. But again, for me, if I did it all over again, I would do it the exact same way. It came with challenges, but came with a lot of opportunity, and so yeah, to the listeners out there, do what's best for you, and just believe in yourself.
It's amazing. Pierce, I appreciate you so much. And for all of you listening, I hope you just took some nuggets out of here for you. What's your thing? I know we deal with patients. I know it's different than insurance, right? We care about those patients. And so for us selling a business, we want to ensure that they'll take care of our patients. But don't let that stop you from the dream that you want to live. Thank goodness for that Porsche, Pierce. Otherwise, you wouldn't have kept working for 10 years. Like, even though it wasn't that great at the end, sometimes the dream and the anticipation is better than the actual reward. But it sounds like selling the business was way better than the anticipation, which is incredible. So I appreciate you. And for all of you listening, thank you all for listening. And we'll catch you next time on the Dental 18 podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental 18 podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.